Well, we are beginning to learn a few small details about the D.C. pipe bombing suspect. Court documents say 30-year-old Brian Cole Jr. lives in a single-family house in Northern Virginia with his mother and other family members. We saw pictures of that house as federal officials were going through it with a fine-tooth comb. In terms of employment, he works as a bail bondsman, profession that may come in handy if he ever hopes to bond out of custody. They also say he's 5'6" and wears corrective lenses. What we don't yet know is a motive or the piece of evidence that led the FBI to him. Cole was arrested earlier this morning and faces at least 2 federal charges at the moment. He is expected in court tomorrow.
What is good, guys? It is your host, Mr. Ghost, with the Real Talk Podcast. Before we get into today's episode, make sure you guys hit that subscribe button, tap that bell, smash the like button, as well drop your thoughts in the comments down below. You guys already know your voice drives this show. I love having the open dialogue. You know, whether if we agree to disagree, we could do it respectfully in the comments down below. There are some great threats to this country that we are not talking about. And I don't think we talk about it enough as the American people. Our house is very strong when we are united, okay? After 9/11, we stood very strong together. Our country came together, very patriotic. But we watch over the last 10 years, this country is being shredded to pieces. The fabric of our society is literally being torn apart. And nobody really wants to address the elephant in the room, and that's anarchy, guys. Okay, which I'll give you the quick definition, is a state of disorder due to an absence and non-recognition of authority or other controlling systems. That's pretty much what anarchy is, guys. And we are dealing with it over the last 10 years because when you look at protests in America, right, which is our fundamental right, we have the right to protest against the grievances of our government. Okay, that's how we bring attention to certain issues in our society or great injustices. But certain groups, organizations, or individuals will insert themselves into these protests and turn it into complete and utter chaos. We've witnessed it with the George Floyd riots. We have witnessed it with the anti-ICE riots. And yes, guys, they're riots. I don't care what the Democratic Party wants to tell you, because they're just another threat to this country, as well as Islam. But we'll talk about those in a different day. But when they sit there and tell us, oh, these are peaceful protests, they're not. These are anarchists that wants to destroy the fabric of our lives. Okay, so on January 6th is probably one of the craziest days we've witnessed in our country in some time. Granted, the Democrats will paint this picture. It is the most infamous day in American history. The day in which an orange dictator almost took over this country with his Nazi regime. Listen, we've dealt with that rhetoric for so long, but the further we dig into the January 6th protests turn riots, we come to find out that, well, Nancy Pelosi blew off the National Guard, and we find out that police officers are releasing arrested individuals inside the Capitol building and fist pumping them. Yeah, so that makes no sense within itself, guys. But we're talking about what happened the night before. The night before, an individual planted pipe bombs outside of the DNC and the RNC. And we got to ask the question, why did that individual do that? And there's a reason. Okay, we spent the last 4.5 years dealing with so many conspiracy theories when it came to this individual. We've had people tell us it was a female FBI agent, no one telling us CIA, it is a psyops, it is an inside job. We've heard all the rhetoric, right? And a lot of people reported on it, from Benny Johnson all the way down to Officer Tatum. A lot of individuals have pretty much touched on it. I left it alone because I didn't have the real facts. And that's something I like to do, is not touch something right away until the facts come out. And now we got the facts. Brian Cole Jr. was arrested from Northern Virginia. He lived up in Northern Virginia with his parents, okay? And this individual worked as a bondsman, and he is an anarchist, a self-described anarchist. There it is, guys. This is why I want to talk about anarchy in this country, primarily directing towards this arrest, because we have individuals that want to rip this country apart. Now, when you ask the question, right, of why this individual did this, none of us will really ever know exactly why he did it until he tells us. But when you do look into the case file, I'm going to be very honest with you. And this brings into a whole nother session. We do another episode on this. Why I think the Democratic Party is another great threat to this country. Because over the last 4 years, under Biden's DOJ and his FBI, they had evidence, okay, on this individual, okay? And I'm going to show you the case file, and you can make your own determination whether if that's true or not. But over the last 12 months, his administration, his FBI, his DOJ was able to bring an arrest, which is good because this is justice. But we're still left with the question of why DNC, why RNC. I got my theory on it, and I'll give that to you guys in a second, so do stay tuned. But I'm going to show you guys something. Take a look at these court documents, okay? We're going to switch over to the big screen real quick. So I'm not going to read all this to you guys because it is a very extensive 7-page affidavit. But I will slowly browse through it, and I'll pick out a few parts as we get there. I will leave this down in the comments below. This will be pinned. You guys can go check it out for yourself. But trust me, it's going to leave you with a lot more questions than answers. And one of the major questions I think we all could ask, how long has the FBI sat on this information? And why wasn't there no arrest made over the last 4.5 years? I know that law enforcement and doing investigative work can take some time. I know that. But when you get evidence like this in modern times, listen, with cameras, with the technology we have on tracking receipts, when you're making IEDs, there are certain components that are just, you cannot miss. You know, it is non-negotiable. You're not going to miss those when you're looking through receipts within that time frame. Review of video surveillance footage from the evening of January 5th, 2021 shows the pipe bombs at the RNC and DNC were placed by the same individual. He was observed on surveillance footage with various different locations. This is what he was wearing. Very distinctive, even though the footage wasn't the best, but very distinctive of what that person was wearing. You could track a lot of the stuff down, what he was wearing, whether he bought them recently or not, we don't know. But this individual by the name of Brian Cole Jr., he was a 30-year-old resident of Woodbridge, Virginia. He was 5'6", poor guy. He wore corrective lenses. He lived in a single-family house with his mother and other family members, so I'm going to presume his father. He worked as a bail bondsman in Northern Virginia. His dad owns a bail bondsman's company. Also works for another one that does primarily immigration. Not sure if that's any related to the Antifa stuff that's happening today, but they identified bank records, guys. Look at this. This is unexcusable. How long has the FBI held onto this information, and why wasn't there no justice brought? Imagine if those bombs went off and the amount of carnage it would have created. Now, I have my narrative of why I think, as I said, you know, why I think he did the RNC and DNC. We'll touch that towards the end. But some of this stuff is, you know, you cannot. Like, these are red flag stuff, you know what I'm saying? When you're looking for somebody that's making a bomb. Okay? Look how fast they caught the Boston Marathon bombers. I mean, look how fast they brought charges against our president. You're trying to tell me 4.5 years we couldn't bring charges against this individual? You know, it's leaving you with a lot of questions, more than you're getting for the answers of those. Especially when it comes to cell tower data. You know what I'm saying? I know it takes a little bit to get the warrants and stuff you need and try to get the providers to cooperate with these warrants. What you would think with it being a pipe bomb, you know, cell companies are like, yep, here's the information, all that you need it. Then you just wind the people down, right? You start, you know, weeding out those that didn't buy certain bomb-making materials. I'm not saying it was an easy job to do. So as you guys look at all these court documents, you know, 7 pages, you go through it, it leaves us with more questions than answers. Okay? In the last 4 years under Biden's DOJ, they had this evidence. Why no charges brought? Then it leaves another bigger question. Why over the last 12 months has Trump's DOJ sat on this? It's a great injustice. So we're just left confused. You know what I'm saying? It's good we got our guy. You know what I'm saying? Thank God the bombs didn't go off. Now, I have my whole narrative of why this guy did this. And I think this guy did this because he wanted a civil war. Because if the bombs went off at DNC, DNC would have blamed the RNC publicly. You know what I'm saying? Oh, the Republicans did it. A far-right lunatic did it. Then the bomb went off at the RNC. They would have pointed back to the far left. And before you know it, the shots are fired. Civil war ensues. Maybe that was his ultimate goal. We do not know. So at the end of the day, we're left with a lot of questions, okay? But there's so many sheep in this country. They are so blind that they're being led by wolves, okay? When it comes to the Democratic Party, so many people are blind to the reality that there's a wolf leading them and to the ideology that socialism is this great thing. There are so many people in this country that protest for Palestine and Hamas. Okay, you ever seen Queers for Palestine? These are the same people that really think they'll be openly welcome in Palestine. And Palestine's not even a country. It's just a group of people that were misled by Hamas. And when you get sympathizers like that, they're being led by a wolf to eventually indoctrinate them into Shia law. That's their ultimate goal. The ultimate goal of these three evils is to overthrow the United States of America. And anarchists is our biggest threat. You know what I'm saying? Islam is another, and so is the ideology of socialism within the Democratic Party. These are threats for this country. We got to take this all serious. Now, the only way we're ever going to ever overcome these evils is by unifying together under God's word, turning back to God and letting God lead. Okay, I might not agree with everything that comes out of Trump's mouth. Okay, a lot of people will push this narrative that I'm some kind of Trumper. Mega. I'm not. Okay. In 2016, I did not vote in 2016. Okay. 2020, I did. Because I knew the threat in this country was real. And obviously this year, this 2024 election, I voted again. A lot of times Trump kind of screws himself with his own words, but he's always been that way. He's always been the one to speak up. Even sometimes his words can get him into trouble because people like to twist it. You know, but January 6th is a day we cannot forget. It's a day we have to look at that the American people were misled on the narrative of the event. Listen, protesting in this country is our fundamental right, but we don't got the right to burn down our cities and destroy public and private property and hurt American citizens. That's where it turns from protest to riots. But the Democrats want to paint a narrative that these riots are peaceful. See, a lying tongue will deceive so many if you are foolish to listen to it. Open your ears, open your eyes, and you'll eventually see that you're being deceived. Okay? I know people are going to go out there in the comments saying, well, you're being deceived by Trump. No, I'm not. Because the second that I see my president doing the wrongful thing, I'm going to call it out for what it is. Okay? Yes, I might not agree with a lot of words come out of his mouth because, you know, some of it could be word salads. But I do agree with his policies of putting this country first, trying to make this country a better place, and returning this country back to its original roots. Okay? Where we are putting God first. We got to stop fighting each other within this house. And we need to unify under the American flag and pledge our allegiance to this country and stand up against evil, because evil and good cannot coexist. And if that takes deporting a lot of people to get rid of that evil, then so be it. But I'll be the first to speak up against human rights violations. I'll be the first one to speak up against evil. I want to hear from you guys in the comments below. Give me your opinion on this whole situation. What is your thoughts? Do you think that we're left with more questions than answers? Until the next episode, guys, I yield the floor. God bless you guys, and I'll catch you in the next episode.